Hi, everyone. I am Gregory Q. Jenkins, the founder and CEO of Quintasia Studios, and this is the Quintasia Podcast. So we've been on a roll for the last few podcasts. You know, you're probably sick of me talking about Stage 32. Well, sorry, you're about to be sick again. I've had the pleasure of meeting some great people from my writers group. And today's episode is no exception. We have some alumnus from our pitch tank practice that we have. And, they came and they made a presentation to us newbies. And I so enjoyed their energy and their spirit. Like I mentioned on a couple of podcasts, just some people that you meet, and, you're just impressed by their energy and their spirit. And certainly these two lovely folks that we have on our podcast today meet that. So please welcome to the podcast, Monica and Louie Vella, the Lavellas.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for wanting to do the podcast. I really appreciate it. I think for those of you out there who are aspiring producers, writers, or you want to make something happen for yourself, I encourage you to listen to today's episode, because I think you will find that, Monica and Louie are just like you. At some point, they started out, they wanted to do stuff, they wanted to get things done. And they started doing things and kept going, and we're going to find out where their journey took them. So welcome you both to the podcast. And why don't you share with our audience, I'll let you decide who wants to go first, a little bit about your background.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Your background stems in entertainment a lot more than mine does. That's why I was suggesting you first. But in terms of writing, I'd always wanted to be a writer since I was a kid. But to me, it was one of those, you can't be a writer as a career type things as you're growing up and told you got to go to university and all the things. So I never really pursued it. When our kids were born, they asked so many questions, and through that, I was inspired to write a little children's book series. So I was like, I'm actually an author, and I self-published. It was so exciting. But, life continued, and I kind of put that on the back burner until the pandemic hit. My pre-pandemic life, I was an event producer. So I owned a vegan food festival, and that was shut down, obviously, during the pandemic. And I kind of took to writing again and picked up screenwriting just as something fun to do. And truly, the moment that I made that decision, Instagram started showing me these ads for Stage 32. And I was like, ooh, what is this? So that's actually how I fell upon Stage 32, was just because, put it out there, started doing some research, and then the algorithms caught up to me. And it was through Stage 32 that I learned literally everything. I knew nothing about screenwriting. Truly, I had bought the Save the Cat book and had just started reading it. And I did not know what a slugline was. I knew nothing. And that was 2 years ago. So to go from, nothing in 2 years to where we've kind of landed, which we'll get into a little bit later, really is crazy to know what our potential is when we are really truly determined to go get what it is that we want.
Mm-hmm. Now we're making movies.
Yes. Your turn.
Which is fun. My background. All right. I have been in the entertainment industry for probably most of my life. I started to make a long, fun long story short, started as a little one, acting background, stuff like that, wanted to be in the entertainment industry, started to learn that, went to school for television and film broadcasting. I was a producer and a host of Canada's only dance music channel, like an MTV, but more dance and nightlife-y, which was lots of fun. So I forged relationships with other producers and other people in the television industry, including the music industry, because it was a music channel. From there, I started to do music festivals and concerts, which I still do to this day. One of our companies does a lot of events, which is all music festivals and concerts, and I help produce and consult and market for them. But again, just like the pandemic, a lot of those events slowed down. So we still had some moving throughout the US, but it slowed down. And as she started to pick up her love for screenwriting, I'm like, I've always had that inkling to get back into the visual arts, right? The television and film. So that's when we created our 105 Films production company and started to jump right into production and build shorts and then movies. And we'll talk all about that journey, but that's my quick story of where I came from in the entertainment industry.
Now, just as a quick aside, and I warn everybody today, probably not as sharp as usual. So there might be a lot of quick asides today.
I like that.
When I hear these little stories, so you mentioned Stage 32, and this is kind of like it just, you started getting ads on Instagram. So I think we all are now aware that our phones are spying on us.
Yes.
And that you don't have to search for anything. Obviously, you couldn't search for Stage 32 because you had no idea what it was.
No.
But if you say certain keywords in earshot of Siri, all of a sudden you will start being served up ads. Now, I don't know if Apple has ever officially acknowledged this, but I think enough of us have noticed that this is the case, that, and I found it interesting that you said that. But of course, when it would be nice if they did that with our content, when somebody was looking for something that, maybe they would do that too. So if you happen to be listening out there, Apple, maybe if you make that happen, that could make the fact that you're spying on us maybe a little bit more palatable.
Well, as a marketing guy with my music festivals and even what we're doing and going to be doing with our films, when you're running this could be a whole other podcast. When you're running ads to those interests, it was in WhatsApp terms of service that they will be listening and watching on what you're typing. So all of Meta does that. Apple does it. It makes our ad experience better.
Isn't a bad thing.
Isn't a bad thing.
That's how I got.
That's how you got to Stage 32.
It's creepy, and I definitely don't love it. But if we're going to look at it a little on a positive slant, it brought me to Stage 32.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's just like our parents used to say, nothing in this world is free.
Yeah.
So if you have a free game, read the fine print on that so-called free game or something like that. They are mining your data. Mark Zuckerberg, and I guess that's why a lot of people didn't like him, he told the truth. When they asked him before Facebook went public, and he says, well, so what is your product? And it's our users. The users are the product.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
as an advertiser on Facebook before the GPDR took hold, I could get a lot of information about people who responded to my ads. And I have to say, it was a great thing. Anyway.
And you got to think I know we're a super aside here, but television still has ads that are usually relevant to the viewer. You'll have certain ads if it's a Super Bowl, or a different one if it's a dating show, and same with product placement in films. You're going to have product placement, which is very much branding in a film that fits the audience. So it's just a whole new version of that. And it's a whole new way of, I guess, delivering relevant ads to you. Now, again, they're listening to us, so it's a little bit different than us choosing to watch a show, but it's the crazy new world we're in.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's fun.
I and you have to forgive me, so because this is the warped way my mind works. And I know I'm spending way too much time on this topic, but it's just kind of interesting. How about this for a story? So, and I'm not wishing this on, my present company, just the way my brain works. So a man, let's say he's cheating in his, it doesn't have to be a man, just say a person is cheating in their relationship. And their phone starts serving up ads for like counselors, divorce lawyers.
Probably true.
Right? Their partner. That was what immediately came into my mind.
Right.
Possibly a thought. And you could even put a horror twist into that too.
I'm sure there's a script out there that's based on
a short script that's something similar to that, where it's technology going a little too far.
Yes. Okay, I want a writing credit for it.
EP at least. Well, there's a lesson, everybody out there, on if you're going to use ads, that it can get to the right audience if you do the ads right. So you got to promote your content, like you said. No, and it works well.
Yes, it does. All right. So back to you guys. Thank you for indulging I guess I'm in a little semi jovial mood today. So what led you to start producing your own films? What made you turn that corner?
Well, I think once the pandemic hit, as we said, I started writing, we were in full lockdown, and Louie was like, I had been writing some short scripts just for fun. And he was like, why don't we take one and just make it with our kids? We have 2 boys who are 13 and 14 now. So this was like 2 years ago. And so I was like, okay. So I wrote this like super quick 3-pager, and we just for fun, we were like, hey boys, we're going to this weekend, we're going to shoot this film. One of them was like, the boom holder, and one was like the assistant doing some spooky stuff behind the scenes. And we had so much fun, and we didn't think anything of it. It was just for fun. We did it on our cell phone. And that's kind of how we got into it. We had a really great time. We're like, let's do like a real one with actors. So we did that following March. And when we started showing our families after Louie had edited them all and everything, our family and friends were more scared of the one we did with our boys, which was just the 4 of us. And it was super simple and like really nothing. And so our point was that we really wanted to get the shorts into the film festivals, because we're like, if we want to start anything, we're going to just use our phones, but we want to start getting it out there, get our names somewhere, and see if we can get into anything and see if we've got something going just to start, because like anybody can start. We all have our cell phones. Like we can do anything with these phones. So why not, right? Why not just take that shot? And so we submitted both of them to film festivals, and how many?
They got into probably 20. We won a few of them. Which was great. And it was, it was like a dual thing. It was practice. So we practiced with, not just production and editing, but also shot lists and what does it look like to hire actors for the second short, and, and have more crew. So it was practice, but it was also building our brand too. We were like, okay, cool. We have this new company. We're gonna have nice scripts coming along. We're going to start developing this, as feature films, but you know how it goes. You're waiting all the time for financing, for attachments, and it's a long road, and it's totally cool. It's part of the game. We're a little bit antsy on what can we do in the meantime, right? What can we do in the meantime? And like you said, everybody has a phone. You don't have to get the best camera, and you could raise a lot of money for a great short, because that is also a nice avenue. You get a good calling card. You might win bigger festivals and larger awards, and that's a good way as well. But you don't have to, you don't have to sit and wait. You could definitely get a nice script and a couple of friends and your iPhone and practice and get it out there, and it's still enjoyable. So that was part of our initial plan to start our growth.
So that's kind of what led us into it. And then we dove into our first feature.
Yeah, we got 2 shorts out of the way. And we're like, I think you had the other short that you talked about the creepy technology one. We're like, I think we should jump into features now. We were like,
because we were going to do 4 shorts, but instead we were like 2 shorts, and let's just do a feature that seems easier, because it was very simplistic in its a Zoom horror is what it is. So in our heads, we were like, this is the simplest way to make a feature. And so we went after it.
It's not simple.
It wasn't really simple at all.
I'm curious, did either of you have any experience with video editing or anything like that?
Yeah.
Both of us.
Yeah. We both
owned our own businesses. So I think in our own branding over, 15, 20 years, we've kind of learned everything a little bit so that we could do all of that stuff on our own. But Louie did all the editing for our short films, but we have professional editors doing our feature.
Yeah. As you expand your team, you get to bring on people that are better than you at those things. But yeah, we both had experience, like you said, running our own businesses, and a part of that is branding and a lot of media arts. I like I said, went to school and had the television experience with some of that as well. So I was always watching other editors. So we were able to put that together. And nowadays, like we said, with your phones and in iMovie or even Adobe Premiere, you can get so much learning done via YouTube or even just tutorials and just play around with the software. Our boys both edit fully. They have YouTube channels and they edit all their own videos. So and they've been doing that for a couple of years. I promise it is not as hard as it seems. Well, obviously, there's a technique to it, of course, but for somebody just wanting to try something out for themselves to start, it's definitely a doable task for sure. Yes.
And now during our discussions and also when I first met you, what came out from your presentation to our group that night is your love of horror. So, what about that genre attracts you so much?
I think it's a part of who we are. Yeah. A little bit.
I mean, I've been watching horror since I was a baby.
Yeah.
For me, my mom loved reading horror. So I watched horror when she had horror on. I must have been a baby and not be able to walk and talk and watch it. So I'm desensitized to horror, but I love the genre. I think it's, horror and comedy are my faves, and I think they're similar as well. Right. But I've always been a horror fan. I'm fascinated that, people can come up with cool ideas and execute them. It doesn't have to be the largest budget all the time. It's just a fun story, and it brings out an emotion in people, fear, right? Which is pretty fun to watch. Yeah. And for you, your love of horror, a little bit different. You didn't watch it since you were little.
No, I only started my whole life I've been into, paranormal stuff, supernatural stuff. We love going on ghost walks in every city that we visit. We love that kind of world, I guess, in real life. And so it's just a natural fit, I think, to love horror. I never watched it, never, ever, ever, because I was so terrified of it. So I couldn't handle the anxiety of the buildups until I started learning how to write it. And then I understood the formula behind it. And then I was like, yes. Okay. And now it does not scare me anymore because I know exactly what the writers are doing and what the filmmakers are doing. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's great for me because now I really enjoy watching it and I love them for the stories. And so it's been a good 2.5 years of just diving in and actually watching Jaws and Friday the 13th and Halloween. I'm only just new to the writing of it, but also to the watching of it. And I'm loving it all. But yeah, naturally, just as a part of who we are, we're very much into that world ourselves, just naturally. So it's just kind of very fitting with our lifestyle, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in the world of horror? And to me, the scariest movie, even though I think there were movies far more scarier than that, but I know why it was for me at the time. The scariest movie I ever saw, and I would say to this day, it's still the scariest movie, is The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie.
The reason why is not necessarily what I saw on screen, but the imagination it sparked.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's basically around a simple theme. Hey, if this malevolent spirit wanted to take you over, you would be helpless.
Yes.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite styles. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. And, that being in a situation of being helpless, see, that's universal.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one wants to feel helpless. And you start imagining all kinds of situations. Like a lot of people, when I saw Psycho for the first time, I don't think I could take a shower for like a month. Because I would swear I would see a shadow. There's somebody.
Keep the curtain open, water's
exactly.
everywhere.
But that's the part of horror that I like. Now, this, what do they call that? There's a term for it. It's something porn. It's just extreme violence, extreme
torture porn.
There's another word for it, but let's go with torture porn, right? I never found that the least bit scary because I don't care what kind of story you're trying to tell, there still has to be a story.
Agreed.
For sure. Yeah.
And the good thing about, I think, when horror is good, because the setup and the context makes all the difference. And if they spent the time right, doing the setup right and the context, you don't even have to show a lot. It's setting that context and letting the context do its job. Then, you have I think Alfred Hitchcock was a master at that. Setting the context of what's happening. You find yourself, there's not a whole lot happening on screen, but I'm kind of clutching onto the seat here, or like what's going to happen next.
Yeah,
that to me is great storytelling. And do you feel like that's the kind of horror stories that you tell?
Yeah, I know for myself, I'm with you. I like the supernatural style of horror, exorcisms, conjurings, those kind of things. Your imagination gets to run wild. Sure, we watch slashers like Scream and Friday the 13th and Michael Myers and all those fun ones. But they're slasher films. It's a different style of horror, like creature films. Creature features are a different style of horror, right? They're all different. I think Jaws might be creature feature, maybe. I don't know, the debate's out there, right? but a different style. But you're right. It's hard to know exactly what's going to scare someone. So if you let your imagination run wild, I think that's going to be key in making a horror movie successful. Whereas when you get into those, we call them torture porns here, that's that very gory stuff. You have to step it up every time because somebody's already seen that style of whatever gory event. Do you know what I mean? You're trying to step it up. It's a different style of horror. It's not my favorite horror.
And if it's missing that story, like you said, then it's
just stuff.
It's just things that are happening. It's
right.
Something. So we definitely, I think for me, writing them, definitely story comes first for me. Louie is usually the one to be like, I think we could add a little bit more horror here.
It's a great story. If there was no horror, it would be an Oscar winner. And there's lots of scares. And I come in with the mental brain of what I saw at 2 years old. I'm like, let's make this scarier. And then she adjusts it to make it polished. She's
maybe you'll write the first Oscar-winning horror film.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? Oh, that'd be so crazy.
It'd be fun. Yeah.
Well, actually, no. What's
Exorcist get an Oscar?
I think Exorcist was nominated, wasn't it?
No, but what's his name?
Get Out.
Jordan Peele.
Yeah, Get Out.
Yeah. He did.
All right, maybe write the second one.
Okay. First female.
Or we'll do multiple.
Yes. And that's funny because I hadn't seen a lot of female writers in the horror genre. But now I'm coming across, a ton of them. So I think that's good because there's a new perspective to bring into this genre. I personally, I always enjoy when horror has its renaissance, and I always laugh when I hear people at the studios that shall remain nameless say, "Oh, well, horror is dead. I wouldn't try to sell a horror story. Horror is never dead."
No, I was going to say horror. It's like horror movies. The bad guy never dies. It is not going to die ever, ever, ever. It'll get hotter and hot and hotter, but it'll never die.
It'll never die. If you have a good story, and they're good for a lot of different reasons. They're generally cheaper to shoot. They tend to spawn franchises, so there's a lot of monetary reasons to like them too. So anyway, let's take a step back and let's talk about how you went from, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, not having a production company to where you are now. And one of the themes that I hammer into my audience is the importance of networking.
Oh, yeah.
Network, people. I cannot stress that enough. If I had done that earlier in life, I would be much further along in the trail. How important has networking been to you guys?
It has been the thing.
Yeah, I think in the entertainment industry, you hear what you just said constantly, networking, and you can't stress it enough. Is exactly right. I think it is hard to say, like it's 100%. You know what I mean? It really is. It's hard to say that there's any like, oh, you can sort of get by without networking. Like you really have to. And then that may be, I'm introverted. I need to network to get a manager, but the manager does all the networking then, right? So somebody has to be networking to make things happen. It's such a relationship business.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a relationship business. Like, you just cannot stress it enough how important it is to just go meet people and, just make friends. You're making friends because it's an art business and people love to work together.
We're going to an event tonight.
We're going to an event tonight.
Like we have tonight. And you can find them all over the place, even if they're virtual. Every little city, we have a small city that we live right near, and they have like a little film community. People are always around. Just go and meet them. You just never know who knows who knows who. Like it's just. And then once you start meeting people, you find out that you start to know people who also know the same people you know. And then you just have this wide net, and everybody from our experience has been so great and wanting to help and support. And that's how it starts. Like, that's how you start. You just, you find your people and you support each other and you cheer each other on and you grow and you rise together. And it's just, you can't do it without networking.
No, and they love introducing you to people. And if you're like, oh, I'm looking for audio guy, or I need people love to share their connections for the most part. I know we always hear Hollywood's terrible, but it really seems like it's not at the same time, right? People love
until you're big.
Yeah, but maybe it's just a different level of things, right? And people are, whatever, I don't clawing at you, but you meet people and then they'll introduce you to their friends, you know what I mean? And connections, and you start to build. So we were just in Montreal. It was a big horror film festival market. Same thing. We got there ground running, started to meet certain friends we already had and key people. And then when you had a little cocktail party, they introduced us to their groups of friends. And before you knew it, you knew so many people. You could drop one of us in the middle of the event and we would walk around and run into somebody that we would know, or they're just so friendly. You can just meet people, but so important because like you said, the earlier you get to do that, the bigger your network of friends in the industry is.
And they'll recommend you if they
For sure.
I just got a recommendation yesterday as a horror writer. So you just don't know where it's going to come from. Yeah. And so, the more you can do that and the more you can get out at festivals to do that too, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000,000,000% important. You could have, a terrible film, be a bad director, script, and still start to make it and learn and get better because you're just, doing things like this, the Stage 32 classes, going to networking events, festivals, and meeting people. You'll learn the craft and get better, and people will bring you up with them.
The first thing when I started out, I did this web series, which I'm now going to turn into a full-fledged television show, but no hypothesis. And I did the casting for it. And that was the first time I had ever interviewed actors. And I'm thinking to myself, because I've heard actors at different forums and things that I would attend, and they would, say a lot of, and I'm like, do you know that the person on the other side of that is maybe just as nervous as you are? Having sat on the other side of the table, I could tell you how many people eliminated themselves by things that they did. And the other thing that I know is, well, I don't know, where the roles are, and I can't get again, networking. So this one specifically to you, Louie, as an actor, do you feel like in the early part of your career, you did enough networking? And do you think it might have gone differently if you didn't think you did enough networking?
Yeah, when I did my baby acting, I call it baby, not as a baby, but like I didn't really pursue acting well. I hosted a lot of television shows, which is not really acting, it's still being myself, but networking, even back then, I did that in school with my teachers, and I schmoozed with them to be friends with them, so to speak. You know what I mean? It was always part of my DNA. So I think if I didn't network at all, I probably wouldn't even be in the entertainment industry. It'd be one of those pipe dreams that's like, oh, I wish I was in the entertainment industry and pursued acting or pursued, business in it. And probably would not even be on this, podcast with you today. So I think right from the beginning, I knew to go to auditions, meet directors, meet other actors at the time. You get a couple commercials, you do a little bit of modeling. You start to feel what you like. I wasn't a fan of acting myself, probably wasn't the greatest at it. So I was like, you know what, this isn't for me, but I love business, always have growing up. So I started to grow into that angle of entertainment. And again, it just, like you said, just becomes a growth process when you keep networking people. So yeah, back in the day, if I did not network, I definitely would not be an entertainer.
I don't even think you would have got the TV job if you, because you knew people and that's how you got in. So
the TV, this is a funny story. I wanted to be on television, like a national network, because I did little things back in the day. And I went and created my own TV show. So I knew this was a national channel, and I sent in my audition tape to be a host and never got called back again, right? Maybe wasn't the best at the time, but I got a couple friends and we went and we made our own TV show. We made a pilot. $0. He got a camera. We rented it. So guess not $0, but we're talking like $100, $200, right? We went to some nightclubs and some restaurants because the national channel was on lifestyle and music. So it fit the channel. Submitted that. They're like, we need content. I got in for a meeting. And they said, well, we like the show. We don't really have budget to add any new shows because we're a fairly new channel, but we really liked your presentation. Would you host shows here and produce for us? And I was like, sure, of course. That was the goal anyways, have I either produce my own show or get into the network itself. So again, opening your own door and going through that one, like we discussed earlier, right? But it was because I had, a couple friends that wanted to work together on this and found out who was the head of acquisitions at the channel, sent it to them, just kept banging on those doors. And there was just another avenue in, and then started that career there. So it's a funny side story. Yeah. There's always a way.
Always a way.
Always a way.
I think that's really the bottom line. And hopefully for those of you out there listening to our podcast today, I hope that's what you take away from this. There's so many examples of people, and I asked this question already knowing the answer to many people. I'm like, well, when you started out, did you have a background in, producing one? And I'm like, no, not really. Yeah. But they saw a need, they went, they did, they always have transferable skills. And I think event management is very transferable because, you're managing projects, you're managing people, you're skilled at herding cats, you're skilled at keeping the trains on schedule.
Like cats.
So it was fun.
Yes,
because
that's what it's like. You've got all these people over here, and when you've got creative people, it is like herding cats. But I think all of that, if you do it well and execute, they're transferable to, hey, making a film. You've got to do it. You have to have a budget. You have to, have a plan, a shooting schedule, all that kind. Be organized. All of those things and certainly with the event management, because you're in a space, but you only have that space for a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. Yep. So whatever is supposed to happen, it needs to happen.
Exactly. You need to get the people there and no fires and
yes.
Yeah, there's your shot.
Good stuff there. So what would you like the future to be like, and what are your goals?
You go for it.
Okay, sure.
What are your goals?
What are your goals? I think for our company, we really are actively looking for a finance partner. So we do have a slate of projects. Some are treatment, some are completed scripts, some are already in development. And so we're kind of looking at that as kind of our immediate goal right now so that we can move forward with the projects that we have. How about you?
Yeah,
Same answer.
That's a big one. I mean, we have lots of great concepts and ideas, lots of great scripts that are being formulated or complete. So as we network with people, that's kind of on the front and back of our heads. Who are great people to work together with, to build teams with, and become a company that we can decide this next script and project super interesting to us. I think it's good for the market right now. So people want to hear that story, and we can make those phone calls to financiers or other producers or studios or whoever it could be, directors, actors, and we can package it together and we know we can get it done. Mm-hmm. And then we pick in the next one, and we've kind of moved, and maybe this never happens. So it's the pipe dream of the goal. Move past the whole, how do we get this done? Right? Yeah. Who are we going to talk to? And maybe that's always going to be the case, but it'd be nice to get closer to that where we know who to go to for this particular next project. These people are looking for this and they want to invest X amount of dollars. We know how the tax credits work, and we just keep learning and building our teams or contacts, and we can just move projects along. That would be a great goal. And, I think we both love doing things like this to share stories because it's fun to see everybody else succeed. Mm-hmm. Maybe they take a little nugget away or a little inspiration, and then they're
like, that's so cool. That would make awesome. A day if you found out somebody heard something and heard one little thing that helped them out. That's to help other people come along, I guess, that brings us so much joy, so much joy.
Well, I definitely think that will happen with this podcast because I know when I heard your story, I was like, I got to talk to them. You guys are great. And again, having the right energy and the right spirit means a lot. And I think you both do. And I don't think it's success, as you know, breeds success. And I think as you continue, and you'll enjoy the day. And I don't think it's long in the future when, you won't have to go looking. Mm-hmm. They'll come looking for you.
Yeah, that happens, right? It'd be cool.
Thank you.
It does. It takes a while. The industry, and without going into a long story, because we're just about out of time, but the industry is going through some tremendous growing pains. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to figure out, well, I've already figured it out because I had the privilege or the horror of seeing it happen in the music industry. Mm-hmm.
And I've said the same thing you're about to say, that we are going to be what the music industry has become with self-distribution, marketing being a big piece of the pie, royalties being decimated. I've said that 1,000 times.
Yes, we're already there.
I know the music industry very well. Some of my previous clients, record labels, and you're right. It is going the same way if we keep going on this path. And it probably is going to go down that way. So you just have to navigate what's happening.
Streaming, the streamers like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu had the same effect as Apple did to the music industry. And, digital, now as a consumer, I love digital music. I just love it. I love being able to buy a la carte. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love that, because the way the labels were turning out music, there were only 2 songs on there that were worth having in the first place.
Yeah.
That was by design. So why do I want the whole thing? I just want those 2. But from an economic standpoint, I understand that selling an entire album was definitely more profitable than selling 2 individual singles. And digital sale, especially, it was bad enough when you went to digital sales. That was bad. Now we've taken what was bad and made it horrendous. Because with streaming, you can get 5 billion streams and you get a penny for royalties. So nobody can explain what the formula is. It killed terrestrial radio because they can't compete. You know, you have a library of 4 million songs. They could never afford a library of 4 million songs to pay royalties on that. You know, 400 is, you know, what they're messing with. And that, you know, that what do you do with those economics?
Yeah, I think streaming subscription prices is one of the big blames. I don't know the Netflix. I know they make a ton of money and the CEOs make a ton of money. So I don't know their actual financials to know where the money could be shifted. And I as far as I hear, WGA and SAG are asking for just a little bit more, and they probably could get a lot more. But subscription, like you said, if I watched a billion streams or one stream, I still spend my $20, right? So the more streams that we watch, there's still only that piece of pie to share. We're trying to look at that and say, well, if we can get eyeballs, maybe we need to expand our formula with branding and product placement. Can't do that on music, right? Like you can't really sing a song. I mean, I know some do, you know, you get the Cavassiers, Air Force Ones and stuff like that. But in something visual, we could, right? So maybe that's a formula. And again, you have to play around with that. But because there's eyeballs and the streaming isn't as high, because, you know, we can self-distribute stuff, right? But you're getting, like you said, little fractions of a penny for all these views. It's not going to pay back your production. But maybe if you're like, I have 1 million views, I know I can get Funko in the next thing for X amount of dollars. You have to, there's massive changes coming all over the place. And I think if we can try and imagine new formulas as producers, it's going to help.
It's kind of exciting being here for that as we're just entering into this industry, because we tend to be disruptors anyways in the things that we do. And we always seem to find like some new path. And with Louie's background being in marketing, it's kind of exciting a little bit to see like where we're going to be able to take these in this new, you know,
look at YouTube. YouTube's been a formula for a while, and they don't pay the greatest usually, but there's a lot of very successful YouTubers out there creating shows, just influencers themselves. So it's not unheard of for us to look at those formulas and say, well, how do we use that to monetize enough to pay for our crews and you make sure you can do project after project without always funding and losing. You don't want to go down that road at all. So while they're fighting the studios, and again, I don't know a lot about what the financials look like, and I just know that there's an imbalance that has to be fixed, and I'm sure it will. Still, I want to look outside the box, and I know we want to look outside the box all the time and say, what other things could we potentially do with content? Does it always have to go to a streamer? Could it be on YouTube? Right?
And we'll figure that out and let you know.
Maybe.
Well, right? YouTube is the biggest, and people forget, is the biggest platform in the world. They have over 1 billion with a B, like even more than Facebook, but Facebook's not, Facebook is also in the billions. So those two, from a platform standpoint, are enormous. Mm-hmm. But YouTube, in my opinion, right now has certain rules because they always survey me and say, well, are you happy? And I mean, no. If you're just starting out, now once you have your 1,000, it used to be 10,000, they did lower it to 1,000 so that you could, charge a subscription. But I don't know about you, it's easier to get people to look at the video, but to subscribe, it's kind of like, look, I'll pay for your kid to go to college. I will, I'll buy you groceries for a year. Just hit the subscribe button. That seems to be a whole lot harder to get people to actually subscribe. And then the metric that I look at is, okay, once you do subscribe, how often do you come back to look at that content? Like what percentage of the views is my challenge getting coming from subscribers? None of those numbers are where I would like them to be, but those are the challenges. And
I feel like you're looking at it like you're a TV network executive. That's what a TV network executive would do. How is the season going? Do we get more episodes or a second season? What are the eyeballs so we can go to advertisers? So in the back of your head, you're already looking at it like a successful television producer on another platform, which is good.
And hopefully one of these days, I have some ideas which I'm going to be rolling out in the next year or so. But unfortunately, I keep coming back to the same answer. Another producer advised, said don't, and that's about having your own platform. And I really don't want to do that. Well, one, because I do know a little something about IT, and that's just a heck of a lot more work than I want to do. I don't want to be in the platform business. But the problem is this, everybody and their brother has a subscription service. That model will not work. I am 100% convinced of that. At some point, we're going to get to consolidation. And we know who the winners are going to be because it's those that have the deep pockets. And it's not necessarily the players that you think, because the advantage that Amazon and Apple have is that's not all that they do. Mm-hmm. So they have really deep pockets that they can tap into that don't necessarily depend upon how the media and entertainment industry is doing, because they're into other things. And I think that will make a difference compared to the other. The only studio, in my mind, that's large enough, not in terms of expenditures, that could, but in terms of the size of their content, is Disney. If I was going to be any one of the quote unquote legacy studios, I'd want to be Disney, because I think that they can, and they have shown it, they can charge a premium for their content and get away with it, because that's how well that they have built their brand.
Yeah. And like you said, they also have other, the parks, the merch, they have other pieces of the business. So a movie comes out, doesn't do so well, but it's a big commercial too for the Halloween costumes and the comic books and all that other stuff. So it's a smart move, right?
Well, unfortunately, I hear rumors that maybe they're thinking about divesting all of that stuff.
Wow. Maybe they have to. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. But anyway, long philosophical conversation for sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're wondering where are we going in this industry. But one thing I am positive about, wherever it is, we will be better for it because the two of you are in it. So
thank you.
That's so
thank
sweet.
you so much for joining me on this podcast. It was wonderful to speak with you. I definitely would like to keep in touch, and find out your successes and the struggles too, because struggles are important as well.
Sure.
It's been a pleasure. We have been talking to Louie and Monica Vella today on the podcast. I hope you have enjoyed. I know I have. And I would like to say to all of you, bye-bye for now, and we'll see you later.